Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Wired for Wellness. My name is Mike Camilleri. I'm your host, and today I have a very special guest with me, Cathy Cooke. Good morning, Cathy.
Morning, Mike. Good to see you.
You as well. You as well. Cathy is the owner of Whole Home and Body Health. She's located out of Boise, Idaho, USA, building biologist who specializes in mold, EMF, indoor air quality, and she's also a certified holistic nutritionist.
Yeah, so I kind of do way too much,
As we
but
all do.
all things related to health. The health of your body, the health of your house. That's where I'm at. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to have you on. Me and Cathy met with the Building Biology Institute in North Carolina recently back, I think it was in December. You were there, right? For the Advanced Electromagnetic Radiation Seminar. Cathy, I'm very happy to have you on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your company and how long you guys have been around and just some details on what you guys provide?
Yeah, awesome. So I began, let's see, I've been a nutritionist since 2014. So I've been working in the health space since then. And then I noticed like my health wasn't very good. And long story short, I started to understand that it was some of my issues were environmental. I discovered the Building Biology Institute and jumped on it and started studying there in 2017. And so I started practicing 2018. So I have been, and I started Whole Home and Body Health in 2018. So close to 8 years now, I guess. And so I've been working mostly in the Idaho area, but have traveled all over the world for this work. So it's been awesome.
Fantastic. That's great. You know, a building biologist can mean different things to different people. Just because for some of the listeners, it might be a newer concept. In your words, what exactly does a building biologist do?
That's a really good point. And I see in the, social media world, I need a building biologist. Well, for what? Like a building biologist can do a million different things. So I like to explain it that a building biologist is focusing on the health of the built environment. And so that could be from an inspection standpoint. We're going to come in and help you find what's in the environment that's causing potential health symptoms, or it can be consulting on how to build a healthy environment, um, or it can be working with a contractor or interior design. Like there's so many different ways that a building biologist may work. So I would say the majority of us, there's probably the most building biology practitioners are probably EMF consultants.
Yes.
And we are helping people to identify the EMF exposure in their homes and how to reduce that. And then, secondly, there's a huge piece of us that are indoor air quality professionals. So we're looking at the indoor air quality and how that impacts your house. And then I would say, thirdly, and a lot of us, like I do all of it. So there's a lot of in between. There's the consultants. So we help people build a new house or kind of restructure their existing house to make it healthier for the occupants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's great. Thank you for that explanation. That's perfect. Kathy, why don't you take a couple minutes and just explain or share, I guess, a little bit about your journey into building biology and what really inspired you to specialize in mold, EMF, and air quality?
Yes. I'll try to make my story short here.
Of course.
So I was bit by a tick when I was 12. I lived in Missouri, and went on a field trip with my grade school class. Got bit by a tick. Got really really sick after, and since then have had bizarre symptoms. I mean, this was what, the 80s.
Yeah.
And I knew something was wrong, but in the 80s we didn't have the same level of understanding of tick-borne illnesses or holistic medicine. So I just got told, I needed to exercise more, I need to eat better, I need to take an antidepressant, blah, 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 for like 30 years, like, I mean, it was crazy. And so maybe 20 years. So then 2012, I finally had a doctor who was like, I think you've got Lyme disease. And I was like, that's what I've been saying for, for 20 years, you know? And somebody finally took me seriously. And I had been doing nonprofit work for the first 20 years out of college. So then I shifted and I was like, all right, I gotta help myself because nobody's really helping me here. So I started to study nutrition, became a holistic nutritionist, had everything dialed in, best diet in the world, managing stress, blocking blue light, all of the things. And my health was at the all-time worst. And so this was 2015. And then in my research, the topic of EMF kept coming up. And it was so foreign and weird to me. I put it off for years. And I'm like, I don't know why I can't sleep for a minute for 3 days, but it's not these invisible waves in the air or whatever.
Mm.
So finally, I got really desperate and I was like, okay, this EMF thing is the only thing that I haven't done. So I committed to turning off my phone, putting it in a drawer for 1 week, and turning off my Wi-Fi. And within like 2 or 3 days, everything started to change.
Yeah.
The tinnitus I had for like 10 years was gone. I started to sleep. My anxiety was gone. It was like, it was immediate and profound. And I was like, oh crap, okay, maybe there is something to this. And then I just dove in. And then, you start to see all the research, the independent research, and you're like, oh my God, this is actually a thing and it's real. So then I knew that if I was going to be able to help my clients, my nutrition clients, I had to know the environmental piece too, because somebody comes to you with, a messed up gut or sinus issues or anxiety. Well, if you're not looking at their environment, you're missing half of the picture.
Yeah.
So I said, all right. And I also knew that I don't have a very analytical mind. I'm more of a creative type of person. And I was like, I can't depend on somebody else to manage this for me because I know I'm going to have to deal with this my whole life.
Yeah.
So the only way I can manage this is to go in and dive in. So I enrolled in the Building Biology Institute. I anticipated doing mostly EMF work, but I figured if I'm going to do this, I might as well study the air quality too.
Yeah.
And then people just started calling me for mold. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm a mold inspector now.
Yeah.
And then I was like, if people are calling me for this, I'm going to have to get good at it. So I again, dove in as hard as I could. And so people call me for both now. And here I am.
Perfect. Yeah. You know what? And good for you for taking that dive because um, a lot of people feel very alone when they when they're experiencing these symptoms and the illnesses, and because it's so hard to identify, right? What is wrong with me? What is going on? Why do I feel this way, right? And I think it's a lifestyle change, but it's just getting that diagnosis, right? Is the hard part for people because they don't know where to start. Once you have the diagnosis, at least you know where to start, and then you can start to look at where do I go for help.
Yeah, it's hard because when you've got symptoms, and I have this conversation with my clients every single day. Is it my diet? Is it the Lyme? Is it Epstein-Barr? Is it a parasite? Is it mold? Is it EMF? Is it the vaccine that I got? Is it like a billion different things? And
Yeah.
where do you start? It's so hard. But that's why I think building biologists like us, we are trained to have those conversations. What happens when you leave the house? Well, for me, what lab tests have you gotten? But that you can't, anybody, no matter what it is, even if they can't identify what the initial source was, and it's usually multiple things,
Yeah.
we can at least help them because they're not going to make progress if their house is not health supported. Right? So even if the house isn't the main thing, we still have to help them create the healthiest home possible so that they can make progress in their health journey.
100%. Yeah, and that starts with everything and I think that's what kind of drove me towards really wanting to bring you on the show was you are like me, you specialize in many different areas, and I think that we kind of need that because it's not just one area of a home that can cause a health concern, right? It could be the mold, it could be the EMF, it could be the air quality or the water, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you look at all the other secondary factors, which are just as important, but like um, the person's diet, their exercise, their level of stress, what they do for work, right? All these different things, right? So that's why when I start off with a client, I start off with a 10-minute sit down and I go through with them
Mm-hmm.
with a symptom chart, and we go through the different symptoms for mold and different symptoms for EMF, and it helps me to understand the way they're feeling, and it helps them understand what I'm going to be doing throughout the assessment.
Yeah, it's super important. We can't just go in and say, I'm here to inspect your house. Like we gotta, I don't know. Like I'm leaving the house and the people are hugging me and they're like, oh my God, I have a brand new friend and thank you for listening. Like it's just,
Yeah,
it's, it's, it's comprehensive, it's not just, I'm here to find mold, which is what most
yeah,
inspectors do, as you know. We
yep,
gotta, we gotta think about the person and their history and where they're at. And it's a big job we have, really.
yeah, absolutely. Here is a big question regarding mold. Uh, what are some of the most common signs that a home may have hidden mold?
God.
Because we can all walk through a home and we can all see it if it's on the wall. We can very easily identify water damage around windows, toilets, under sinks. But I mean, let's face it, there are some other areas of the home where it is a lot more difficult to catch these things. And I it's important. And like I was telling you earlier, I have a team of individuals that I work with, um, but we don't go. I can't go around making holes in walls because I can't patch those holes. So, what
Mm.
in your experience, what is the best way to? Are there any signs, symptoms that people should be looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, like that's kind of the bane of my existence. Like, this question keeps me up at night. Did I miss something? Is there something there I couldn't see? Because there are times every inspector in the world will miss a thing because we can't see it. We all have. I know that I have. I don't know anybody who hasn't missed a thing because we can't, if it's hidden,
Yeah,
and there's not a single sign, we don't know. So there are many tools that we can use to help be more comprehensive. Um, I do, when my clients allow me to drill holes in the walls, I do it.
yeah,
I will do whatever they want. And a lot of people don't. There's liability, you know, is there going to be more exposure? There's different rules where we live, but here in Boise, like it's the Wild West. I could do whatever I want. Of course, I don't want to expose my clients, but if they're willing, like I want to get aggressive. If somebody in the family is sick, let's drill holes in the walls. Let's
yeah.
look. So, but that's not a surefire way to know
Do
either.
you
If you
use
drill a hole, what's that?
do you use a scope at that point, or are you
Yeah,
doing air? Are you doing air cavity, like
I
actual
will do
air test?
either.
Yeah,
Either. So, like just last week, for example, I had an inspection and they have a son who's very sick. He's not growing, and it's very disturbing. And they're like, they had an inspector in there before me, and they said everything was fine. And so then they hired me because they heard, I don't know if the guy was there for 30 minutes. He took an air sample. He's like, everything's great. I walk in and in 5 minutes, I'm like, well, you had a leak at your washing machine, and I could see stachybotrys behind the trim. Like, that's a problem. And then they're like, just find it, find everything, just go. And I'm like, cool, okay. So I drill a hole behind the master shower. I can stick a scope in there and I can see inside that wall, but there's no
yeah,
insulation there. So great, I can do that. But then there's some water damage on the exterior wall. I could drill a hole in there, but I'm going to hit insulation. So I'm not going to see anything there. So it doesn't make sense to drill a hole there, right? I could take a wall cavity sample in that hole, but we need to be aware that, again, I've got insulation and there might be house wrap on the interior. Like, I
yeah,
don't know where the house wrap is. So how accurate is that sample going to be? Well, it might come back negative. And if it does, we need to know that that's not the full picture potentially. If it comes back positive, though, it's positive, we got a problem.
Yeah.
Or sometimes some clients are like, just cut a 2 foot by 2 foot hole. And okay. I mean, I'll do that. And I'm like, knowing like we need to know that if I cut this hole, we may expose you so like it's better to do this under containment. But there are times where like we just need to know, just do it. And I will do that and I will remove the insulation so that we can look. That's most people aren't going to do that because you do run the risk of exposure and we don't want to do that. But there are levels of how aggressive do we want to get. So that's kind of on the ground inspection. If
Yeah.
we don't want to do that, or you're a renter, or for some reason you can't do that, or you really, we don't want to expose you, let's do some testing. Do we do an ERMI? ERMI is a huge controversy in the mold space. I will use it as one tool, knowing that there's a lot that goes into the interpretation. We can have false negatives, we can have false positives. Like, we want to take as many samples as we can and then have consider the full picture based on that information.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we just got to do our best with the tools we have, get as much data points as we can to try to identify what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I try to keep it simple for people when I'm doing my assessments, because let's start off at the beginning with a walkthrough visually with the infrared and moisture meter and see what we can identify. Run some air testing, see if anything comes up, and it also depends on the client too, right? Like if the client is somebody who's super sick, you're gonna run the ERMI test afterwards, right? You're gonna probe more, right? Versus if all your tests and your visual inspections come back as being, positive signs, maybe you don't have to run that ERMI test right away. Maybe it's just a wait and see approach. It,
Yeah.
it all depends on the customer's budget as well, right?
Budget
And
is a really big deal
yeah,
because this
it
gets
is.
expensive very fast.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The labs definitely we make them rich, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Uh, but
Yes.
Cathy, you know what? Let's switch topic here just a little bit. I think that indoor air quality is something that's very important. And like when we're talking about IAQ, we're talking about VOCs, formaldehyde, particle counts, carbon monoxide, dioxide, relative humidity, temperature, all of these things. Um, do you how what tools do you use? How's your approach with indoor air quality? And tell us a little bit about uh, maybe a story about an indoor quality job.
Yeah. Well, most people, if they're hiring me for a mold inspection, I still do the basic indoor air quality parameters. I'm still testing carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, particulate matter, gas, formaldehyde. I'm still getting those pieces because those are easy things to measure.
They are, yeah.
Most of us will have, and like I'm there, it's going to take me a couple minutes. I leave them, I can go do things, I can come back and look at them so I can really weave that in. I think that's important. There's plenty of times when someone's like, I think I have a mold issue and I found gas leaks. Well, multiple gas leaks. Okay,
Are gas leaks something you regularly test for on an indoor quality test?
almost every job I
Yeah.
do.
And
Because I'm there and I'm looking at the furnace and I've got a gas sniffer, why not put it on there?
perfect.
You know?
Yeah.
So yes, I make it because, yeah, like I said, I'm there and I have all the tools. Why wouldn't I just also do that? And, think about carbon dioxide. If we've got extremely elevated carbon dioxide levels, well, why is that? If
Yeah.
you've got a wall full of mold that's consuming oxygen, your carbon dioxide levels can go up. So that's a proxy of, okay, if I've got 2,000 parts per million carbon dioxide, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So that can be something that can give us information about the mycology of the home.
That's interesting.
But it can also be maybe it's not related. I've got clients who I walk into their house and they've never opened a window in the 5 years that they've lived in that house. And I'm like, oh my Lord. And they have exhaust fans on all day and the house is super tight and I've got 2,000 parts per million. Well, maybe this is the reason for your headaches, right? Maybe it's not mold. Maybe it's because you have no air, no fresh air or
Yeah.
ventilation in the house.
I usually recommend HRV systems, air
Hmm.
purifiers.
For
In
sure.
terms of carbon dioxide, I think it's something that I think a lot of people mix it up with carbon monoxide, but also I think that carbon dioxide, like, what would you say are the top three or four reasons? I know you just talked a little bit, like there's air ventilation, maybe it's a mold issue. What other reasons would there be higher levels of carbon dioxide that you could think of?
Yeah, it's the large majority of the time it's because the house is super tight. They run exhaust fans because they know, they've been told to run their fan after they shower or when they're cooking. Awesome. But they don't know they're supposed to crack a window for makeup air. Nobody knows that. I've never been in a client's house where they're like, "Oh yeah, I practiced that." They're all like, "What? I'm supposed to have makeup air?" And and then it pulls it from the wall cavities in the crawl space and the attic, and that's gross.
Yeah.
So that's by far the largest reason. Or the house has 8 occupants and 2 dogs. So I
Yep.
guess that would be 10 occupants, right? And everybody's breathing and consuming all the oxygen, and the carbon dioxide is way high. Um, that's usually the main reason. Occasionally, I am worried that there might be a mold issue, but that would be, I live in Idaho. It's very dry. So I don't have this wall full of mold, that we all think of that often because of the climate, but occasionally I do. So yeah, it's mostly just too tight, poor ventilation that people are not paying attention to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely understand. Yeah. And in terms of VOCs, right?
Hmm.
It could be so many different things. Um, for total volatile organic compounds. Our handheld devices, I monitor for about 48 hours.
Well, that's good.
And then what I do is I honestly I it depends on what the client's open to as well and the distance, right? If I'm driving 4 hours away, I can't really do that.
Right.
But I can, I can data log for the time that I'm on site, and we can look at the different sources and try and clear it up that way. But I know there are some different kits that are available in the US that I have found. Our biggest struggle here in Canada is the fact that everything has to be sent down to the US for lab
Mm,
driven testing. And like our radon testing goes down to the US, our VOC testing
really?
goes down to the US. Yeah, and so like that's our biggest thing because it drives up costs as well. But I have actually found a few kits that I really, really like that I'm hoping that I can get clients to try out. And these are the ones that actually break down the V, right?
That's a great idea. I would love to take a VOC meter into the, you know,
Yeah.
department store. Good
Yeah.
idea.
Well, they were complaining about, itching, burning eyes
Oh my
and
gosh.
throat. And I think there were a lot of other ventilation issues there that were causing, they're right beside the food court. So the particle levels were very high as well, and they had some water
Mm,
damage recently, and like so there's a number of issues that needed to be investigated, right? But yeah, it's a lot of people don't realize too, and I mean it's up to us as the professionals to know and understand how our equipment work. But when we're doing testing and somebody throws on the gas stove, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Gas gives off higher levels of
Right.
particle counts, right? Frying foods gives off higher levels of particle counts.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you got to trace it back to that kind of stuff and ask people not to cook while you're on site, but
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
not always easy to do either. So, especially if you're data logging over 48 hours, it's really difficult to ask people not to cook. So, you got to take that and look at
Totally.
other major issues, but yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like you're saying, there's a million different variables, and I use a lab for the VOC. I basically will do a 2-hour collection and send it to a lab so that they can break down the individual components because sometimes it is a VOC issue. that, especially in new builds, I see that often.
Yeah.
Um, or I mean, I've had clients that, their work, they, they work close to a warehouse or what have you. And VOCs can be a big, big issue that most people aren't paying attention to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I was in a client's home last week and they had really high levels of formaldehyde, right? And I'm looking around and they very, very heavily invested in these really nice cabinets that are all particle board, right? And so I explained to them that it's the glue inside the particle board, and they had the hardwood floors, and there weren't many other reasons why, but yeah, just I mean, what are they going to do? They're not going to rip down and destroy their formaldehyde, sorry, their cabinets. But I mean, at that point, it's an air purifier. The Dyson has a nice offer for formaldehyde, filtering out formaldehyde.
Yeah, the Austin Air has a good one too with the potassium, and their HealthMate Plus, I think it is, and then IQ Air has one as well that you can get that with the potassium that's good for
Very
formaldehyde.
nice. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about electromagnetic fields here. Um, in your area, some areas might be like some regions might be different than others in their approaches for electromagnetic fields and what some of the um, main contributing factors can be, right? Downtown areas are going to have higher levels of wireless radiation. Um, what do you find in your area are the biggest challenges in controlling EMFs, and what are some of your approaches?
Yeah, so I'm actually really fortunate in the Boise area that the electricians here are very well trained. So I very rarely find wiring errors and that kind of stuff like I do in other parts of the country. It was also, the city kind of grew pretty systematically over time. So we didn't have this huge, we've had a huge boom in the last several years, but prior to that, um, I feel like this very slow systemic growth was very positive for the EMF potential issues because I don't see issues that often from neighborhood distribution lines. We don't have many copper water pipes. Everything's been switched out. So it's pretty good here compared to other places I go. However, the radio frequency, of course, is an issue because we have cell towers everywhere. And then in Boise, we do use PLC meters, which are power line communication meters.
Yep.
And what I mean is the smart meter, right? Your
Yeah.
utility meter that everyone says, oh my gosh, I have a smart meter. This power line communication meter is technically smart because it's a two-way communication device,
Yeah.
but it's not emitting radio frequency. And occasionally I will see a little bit of dirty electricity from these meters.
Yeah.
So that's kind of unique to us here. But overall, like I really enjoy doing EMF assessments here versus other parts of the country because it's a completely
It can
different
be
beast
very
in other
challenging.
parts.
It can be very
Yeah.
challenging. I
Yeah.
know in our downtown area here in Toronto, the homes are a lot older, right? And so the biggest thing that I find is magnetic fields,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
another area that I find that's related to magnetic fields as well is the overhead power lines instead of underground, right? So the overhead power lines are attaching to the sides of the home, and a lot of the time it's attaching to the wall where the bedrooms are or the living room walls are. And so a lot of people don't know to check for this stuff, but where you're spending the most time, one individual is that was right where he sleeps. And so of course it was something, and these are things that are hard to change, right? Because I mean, you can try calling the utility company, but you're not going to have much luck because they just don't recognize the issue. The easiest thing at that point is to, move the bed off the wall or change your room, right? And sometimes that's easier to do, and sometimes it's very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough, and we just have to give multiple options,
Yeah.
and then we have to decide what works for us. It's all on a continuum, right?
Yeah.
We can get extreme, we can move, or we could try a couple of, less invasive solutions to make the best impact,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. And I just finished Samuel Milham's book,
Mm.
Dirty Electricity, and I tell you, after reading that book, it opened my eyes in a different light. We'll go
Mm-hmm.
into somebody's home, and we will, measure the dirty electricity, right? Whether it be on the Stetzer meter or it be with the oscilloscope, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, we always give the people the option, right? But if you look at the stats on dirty electricity, magnetic fields, electric fields in our homes, right, and our workplaces, like he talks a lot about workplace safety for with electromagnetic fields, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's designed and meant to scare people, but I don't think we shouldn't drive fear into people, but I don't think people really understand that, the cancer rates are up for a
Yeah.
reason,
Right.
right? And it's because of the way that we are doing things. When you're on site with your clients, how far do you go in terms of pushing, you know, safety on you guys really should need to do this because the consequences of this short term and long term are this.
Yeah. That's a good question, and it's difficult because, in my experience, the large majority of the time, one person has hired me and the other person's not interested in me
100%.
being there,
And
right?
it's always like that, and sometimes that could put you off a little bit as well, right, in terms of, yeah, I agree.
So it's we often have to make compromises, and I agree with you. I think dirty electricity is probably probably the field I'm most worried about,
Yes.
versus, over electric fields, magnetic fields, or even radio frequency. I feel that way because I can feel when I'm in an environment with a lot of dirty electricity. I can be around Wi-Fi, I can be around the cell tower, I can be around, I can work in a panel that's got a magnetic field. But if I put my hands on my computer for 20 minutes, I am toast. I
Yeah.
am like, I can't function. My brain's weird. It's the dirty electricity that really gets me. And and I have a lot of clients who I recognize those same symptoms. So I just basically, I give them the information and I say, I might even tell them that, like, this is the field that really gets me the most. I think it's really worth making some changes. Um, and, then it's up to them to decide. I will stress that I think it's very important, but, you know, it's up to each person to decide if they want to actually follow
Yeah.
through.
And I mean, let's face it, to clear up a lot of dirty electricity issues, these filters, they're not cheap, right? And
It's very difficult.
then there's also, strategy, right? I mean, some if you talk to Stetzer, they will tell you, like you need to do the whole house, right, in order for it to be effective.
Yeah, it's,
I try
yeah.
to really work with clients in terms of your where you spend the most time in your home, and also like what
Same.
circuits are the
Yeah,
highest, right? Let's
right.
start there, right? Let's if you're open to buying a full box, that's great. But if not, then like let's start by working in the bedrooms and the living room and the areas where you spend the most time and where the highest levels are. And then again, also like building biology teaches us that it's elimination of the source, not just plugging in a filter, right? So we're not starting
100%.
with plugging in a filter, but clients are not always willing to get rid of their dimmer switches as well, right? I mean, that's a big thing, but
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we just got to do the best we can, you know?
agreed,
Yeah.
agreed. And that's actually something that I think it's really starting this podcast, and I've talked to a lot of our colleagues around Canada and the U.S. About building biology issues. So I'm getting to hear a lot more of the different areas of what people are experiencing, and I wanted to thank you because I know that you are very, very well respected in the building biology industry, and
Thank you.
it's really nice to have you on.
Yeah, well, same to you. I'm really glad that you are doing this so that we can spread this information to more people. So important that people know about this field and what we're doing, and it can be the difference in someone's life. So, yeah,
Yeah,
good for you for getting the word out there. It's important.
thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
So here's some practical tips and prevention for homeowners. If someone wanted to health-proof their home, where do you think they should start? Mold, air quality, or electromagnetic fields?
Boy, tough question. Um,
Can I tell you where I start?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Always mold.
Oh, really? Do
Yeah,
you? Okay,
100%. Always
okay.
mold. And the reason for that is because mold is such it's 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 a terrible thing, and it breaks down our bodies, our immune systems, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you often hear about all the other illnesses that come about afterwards, but we'd never look at the root causes, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so like I always explain it to clients that like, hey, they'll say, Mike, I don't have any reason to believe there's mold in my home,
Mm.
right? And I used to say, okay, no problem, we'll start elsewhere. But now I say, hey, you know what? Let's just do this, okay? I'm not going to add any extra cost to your invoice. All I'm going to do is while I'm there, I'm going to take a walkthrough of your home. I'm going to run a
Mm.
couple air samples, and we're going to start there because there's a lot of other underlying issues that can come up if we don't
Yeah.
rule this out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the best thing we could do is rule out mold first. And I mean, everybody has mold, but it's
I agree with you. Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense. If you do have a mold issue, all the EMF mitigation in the world isn't going to help you much if you're reacting to that mold. And there's been plenty of times when I've walked into a house because somebody called me for EMF, and I'm like, I don't think this isn't an this is an air quality issue. So, yeah. Well, that's the benefit of having someone like us, someone like you or me,
yeah,
because we can identify both of those things at the same time,
yeah,
which is
100%.
kind of invaluable. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think are some affordable solutions for people who can't make the big changes but still want to improve their homes?
Yeah. Wow. Really good question. So, really, like going back to opening windows, we need dilution is the solution to pollution, right? We really need to be opening windows and getting fresh air intake. So
Yeah,
many people are not doing that. However, I know people live in humid climates and they can't keep windows open all the time because they got to keep humidity down. But you can crack a window a couple times a day, monitoring your humidity um, for some fresh air intake. Getting a good air purifier also, I mean, I know that some of them are expensive, but you're going to have that forever. So I think that's really important. Um, and then as far as EMF, I mean, I am a broken record when I say this, but people just need to hardwire their internet. Like it's not people lose their minds because it's like, oh my God, I'm going to have a wire from my computer to my wall. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Just like 15 years ago when that was our only option.
that's right.
It's,
That's right.
right? And it's not a big deal. And we just need to have a mind shift. And actually, for mental health, I think this is important. I go to this spot to have internet access.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
the rest of my home, I don't have a screen there because I'm going to live my life
Yeah,
instead.
yeah,
So hardwiring your internet is, I mean, of almost every house I go into, that is by far the largest exposure. And if you do just that, you're going to reduce your exposure by a massive amount.
yes,
So
absolutely.
those two things I would say right off the bat are the biggest things that people could do. There's a lot more, but If people could focus their attention on those two, I think we would make or three, I think we would make a huge difference for people.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you, and that's usually the first thing that I recommend to clients is, especially like when you're working with a client that they're moving into a new home, they haven't moved in yet. Now is the perfect opportunity for you to do these things, right? And I just finished working with a client, doing electromagnetic field paint in the bedrooms, and
Cool.
yeah, it was very interesting. They were very concerned. They hired me originally to, measure the because there were some cell towers that were going up that are already up in the area, and they're very concerned about it because they have a child who has autism, and they're more susceptible and sensitive to these issues, right? And so we completed the study, and definitely the levels were higher, right? And that's just the sad part about it is that there's nowhere that we can go where we can't get away from it anymore. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, behind my house there's a huge water tower with antennas all over it, right? And I mean, I did everything I possibly could, to shield from the outside. But the big thing is, like you just said, making sure that we control the inside of our homes as well, right? Because the modems, the Wi-Fi extenders, all those things, and then you got to look at the electric fields, the magnetic fields, the dirty electricity. It's a lot for clients to take in all at once.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, that's a good point. It can be all of this can be very overwhelming. So people might be listening to us going, "Oh my God," like, back to our initial conversation, like, where do I even start? What do I even do? I can't do all of that. It is very overwhelming, and that is not our goal. But we start with the little things that we can do, right? And
Yeah.
then, I mean, I've had clients that are like, I've been wanting to call you for 3 years. And I'm just now going, okay. I mean, hopefully it doesn't take someone 3 years, but I get that it's a process and, think about it. And then, we start to make the changes as we can. And so everybody's just going to do the best they can.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think that, it's just I always let clients know as well, that I'm here today, tomorrow, and a month from now if you need anything, right? And
Yeah, for
not
sure.
everything. I get clients that don't even read the reports. They're too scared to read the reports,
I know.
right? And
Yeah.
and so I tell them, listen, like the whole idea of this is not to freak you out and scare you. It's There's a lot of small changes that you can make, that are that can make a big difference, and those are the things that I usually like to go through with them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a tough space because especially if you're online and you watch the news, you're on social media, every day there's a new thing that we need to worry about.
Yeah.
And it can be a little scary, but just like you're saying, we start where we can. And I find that once people do actually make those little recommendations that we make, huge differences, and they're always very appreciative. But we just have to give them the information, and like you said, I am always there for someone. Call me anytime, shoot me an email. It could be 2 years later, let me know, and I'm always going to be there to follow up and help wherever I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's perfect. Kathy, I wanted to again thank you, for being on the show, and, maybe we can do this again sometime in a more expanded role, or maybe we focus just more on, mold or EMF. And, thank you so much for being on with us today. And,
Yeah, awesome.
this episode will
Yep.
be uploaded to Spotify and YouTube, with in about a week and a half or so.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Well, we will, talk soon, and you enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
Yeah.
Bye.